today we're going to be talking about how to open up your partner. And the primary method that we're going to be discussing is listening. Interestingly enough, when I first sent out the broadcast or the email about this class, I labeled it like how to become a great listener. And nobody showed up, okay? Because nobody wants to become a great listener, right? Everyone wants the other person to listen to them. They don't want to become a great listener themselves. It's just the way we are. Josh, I hope you're noticing the beautiful guitar in the corner over there. Okay. Yeah. So the question I like to ask my clients is, do you believe that you really know how to care? Do you think that you really know how to show compassion and empathy and sympathy and love? And do you really believe that you're capable of showing up for your partner in a way that is meaningful to them when they are struggling, right? As all people do. So I'm going to ask all of you, Annabelle, do you think you know how to care? Josh, Josh is running out of the room. Good.
I think I'm still learning. I've gotten better.
Good.
And it definitely takes practice to care in the ways that's actually the other person considers caring instead of how I consider is caring.
Okay, good, excellent. And Josh, would you say that on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you on the caring scale?
That's hard to judge yourself accurately.
Okay.
I like to think that I can care, but I doubt I do it a lot.
Okay, all right. That's
what would be appreciated.
Nice. Okay, all right, good. So that's what we're learning tonight. D-Mark, how about you? Do you feel like you're a good carer, or do you feel like you have some challenges in that area?
Yeah, I need help in that area.
Okay. And D-Mark, what's your spouse's name?
Diamond.
Diamond. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Diamond, is she with you?
Yes, you're right here.
Oh, cool. Diamond, how about you? Would you feel that you're a good carer?
I'd like to think that I am, but I don't know if I always care in a way that's meaningful or I guess beneficial to the other person.
Good. Excellent. Okay. Yeah, that's a common challenge. And Mark, I don't want to, if you're muted yourself and that's how you want to say, that's cool, but I'm going to offer you the opportunity if you want to chime in.
Yeah, sure. I would say yes. It's funny. I had a little bit of an argument with the miss this past weekend. Before adjusting, oh yeah, I'm a good at caring, and everything. And there was definitely ways I could have improved on it this past weekend. And I think like what Annabelle was saying is there's kind of caring in a general sense, but also like in sort of terms of the love languages of like how caring is particular to them, how they see care what's most important to them.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, it's caring is challenging for a couple of reasons. Obviously, one of the primary reasons is because it's difficult for us to know how our partners best experience compassion. I mean, I know how I experience compassion, right? How I want to be treated when I'm not feeling up to it, or I'm tense or annoyed or angry or frustrated, I know how I want to, right? But I don't know how my partner wants to. So that's the first thing, right? There's a deeper reason why, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, why caring is oftentimes so difficult. Okay. And the reason why caring can oftentimes be so difficult is because when somebody I care about is in pain, then I'm in pain, right? So I find it easier to care in some ways about people who I don't know. Like if I were to see an ad for a starving child, or if I were to see like this building that collapsed in Miami, there's like untold sympathy that goes out from almost everybody, when we see a tragedy like that, right? But when it's somebody I care about and I love, so when they're in pain, I react with my pain. And my reaction functions as a wall that inhibits me or makes it more challenging for me to show true empathy. And it might sound a little confusing right now, but I think if I give a couple examples, it'll become more clear. So to go back to the theoretical just for a second before we come up with some concrete examples. When somebody I care about is in pain, I go into a minor panic mode. These are some of the things that come through my brain. Number one, why are they hurting them? What happened that is so painful to them? Number two, does this make sense that they're in so much pain? Number three, can I fix it right away? Number four, if I can't fix it, what does that say about me? Number five, how is their pain a reflection of me as a person? Right? If there's and this obviously quadruples when the reason why they're in pain is because of something that I'm responsible for. Right? Then all of a sudden that's like skyrocket in defense mode. So what ends up happening is that one of the biggest challenges I have, and many people I know and clients have, is that when their partner's in pain, they internalize that pain and we become defensive, or we become judgmental, or we become angry because they're in pain. And we get so consumed with our own experience of what's happening that we end up not being able to show up for our partners the way they need. And I'll give you an example. I have an article on my website that discusses this, but this happens quite frequently with husbands and wives, right? So a man comes home from work and he had a lousy day, right? He just didn't make his sales numbers, probably not going to get that bonus. The guy who was just got there 2 years ago has already got the promotion and he didn't. The list, he was late and he got yelled at. He had a big presentation that he wasn't prepared for, right? The list goes on and on for the reasons why a young man or a middle-aged man could be frustrated at work. And he comes home and he's exhausted and he's angry and he's got this attitude that's on his shoulders, right? And he walks in the house and a woman, of course, is like Superman with her X-ray vision, right? She has X-ray vision right to the heart. And she can see from his body language, from his aura. I can't even tell you how she knows, but somehow she can figure it out right away, no matter what kind of smile he's painted on his face, that he's pissed, right? When he walks in that way, right? So when he walks in that manner, she all of a sudden starts thinking to herself, she gets angry, right? She thinks, oh my gosh, my husband's upset. I must have done something wrong, or why is he in a bad mood, right? And then she may come up to him and she may say, what's up? And maybe he doesn't want to talk about it. So he doesn't really respond in the way that she likes. So what happens? She gets upset at him and she turns her back on him and she gets annoyed that he's not opening up to her and not connecting with her the way she feels is necessary to help him with his pain. When this happens, the guy has got now two problems. Not only did he have a lousy day at work, right, which is really sad for him, but at the same time, he has experienced this anger from his wife. So he's got the double whammy of pain, right? And just overall rejection. Can you guys relate to that situation? Did everybody here kind of understand what I was saying and kind of can see that scenario? D-Mark, do you know what I'm talking about? Yes. Okay, you got it, right? Cool. Yeah. So this is the kind of thing that basically stops us from being able to give to our partners the way that they need, right? And this happens all the time. It happens with your partner, it happens with your kids, it happens with, oftentimes a child will show up. This is one of the most popular things that we talk about children in terms of negative, when the parents respond negatively to a child's emotional outburst. One of the things that a psychologist will oftentimes tell you is that the reason why the child was acting this way was because there was something else that was wrong, right? So us as parents, so if your child is acting up or if your child is acting disrespectful, right? It's so easy for a parent to immediately point their finger at their child and say, oh, he's being disrespectful or she's being, inappropriate. When the reality is that the child is really bothered by something else. Now, not only did the child perhaps have a bad day with their friend, but their parent is angry at them as well, right? And that's really sad, right? So the point of this, the point of this class tonight is getting our partners to open up, right? And the question is, how do we do that, right? How do we bypass our own experience of our own pain and at the same so that we can best connect to our partners in the way that they need? Okay, so I'm going to open up that conversation to everybody on the call. Anybody have any suggestions of how we can supersede our own experience of our partner's pain so that we can best connect to them? Annabelle, do you want to chime? Oh, D-Mark, you want to say something?
You mean like for example, like the example you use, like when you have a bad day and you come home and your wife won't talk and you don't really feel like talking, like how we could like prevent an argument?
No, I'm talking about from the perspective of your wife, not from you.
Oh, like
So it'd be like if you were having a bad day and you came home and you were in a good mood. So instead of me getting angry at you for not telling me what was wrong, I would. I
don't know.
Time and just not assume that it's my fault.
Yeah, it's hard not to assume it's your fault, right? That's the problem. Yeah, that's tough because our natural instinct is to assume when our partner is angry or when our partner is upset or even when our partner is sad that it has something to do with us. That's our that's our go-to way of responding. And that doesn't leave a lot of room for empathy, right? Then your partner has to kind of defend themselves and maybe they end up apologizing to you, right? D-Mark had a horrible day at work, Diamond, and then you get upset at him also, and then he finds himself having to apologize for you. And that's not really showing him compassion, right? That's making it even worse for him because now he's eaten crow twice. He had to apologize at work, and now he comes home from work and he gets to apologize to you too. So we want to be there for our partner, right? So Annabelle, do you have any suggestions?
Yes. So I would, I think first thing I would do is to separate myself, remove myself from the situation.
Okay.
But I think before that even, it's like identify what are my feelings, what is my experience that is, separate. Okay, sorry, let me start it over. It's more like recognizing that, like this person is acting this way, I don't know what's going on, I should, rather than assuming, did I do something wrong or does that have anything to do with me, is to just think about, oh, I wonder what he's going through and then ask him.
Good. That's
without
excellent.
Assumptions.
Good, excellent. So that's the one way that we can become a better partner and open up our partner, right, is to let go of our assumptions that this has something to do with me, right? Good, that's excellent. Hi, Grace. Nice to see you. Mark, did you want to add anything, or are you just listening for now?
I would agree with what everybody had said so far. A lot of it, yeah, it's like you had said, we assume it's always because of us, and that's either our ego talking, or most of the times our insecurities talking. And sometimes it can be because of like something we said or did in the past, but a lot of times it has something to do with their trauma, the past, or their experience with like an ex, and that can be influencing them too. And it's hard not to take that personal. And I experience that all the time, and that's something I'm actively working on myself, and it doesn't happen overnight.
Good, excellent. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So as everyone mentioned, one way of kind of succeeding in not being so reactive is to really lean in hard to the idea that it doesn't necessarily have to do with us. And even if it does have to do with something we said, but whatever they said may not be, the intensity of their reaction may be because of something that happened to them earlier in the day, or as Mark said, earlier in their life. That's number one. Okay. That's very good. That's very good. And I want to take it even a step further. So that's a terrific first step. I want to take it a step further and suggest that one of the most powerful ways that we are able to overcome our initial inability to show compassion is because we don't have compassion for ourselves. That's a huge piece of the puzzle, that we're walking around with a negative story about ourselves and about our history. And that's what's coming to the forefront when I see my partners in pain. That's the trigger as to why I'm so upset when they're upset at me. Because really, I'm upset at me. And they're just adding to the anger that I have on my own life and my own situation. So when we show up in our relationships with these stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves, I'm not good at this, I've always been somebody who's been controlled, people are trying to manipulate me, I'm easy to attack. It could be any story that we have about ourselves. People take advantage of me, people don't respect me, right? So Diamond, if you're walking around with this story about yourself that people don't respect me, which could be something that you learned when you were a kid, or something that maybe happened to you at some point, or maybe you had a horrible day, right? Then when your husband shows up and he's not behaving particularly respectful, instead of you being able to say, wow, you seem like you had a tough day, this isn't like you, the first thing you say to yourself, Diamond, is, see, even DMark doesn't respect me. This is outrageous. And then you go after him with your, emotional dagger, right? It happens to everybody. Right. So one way that we can overcome, how do we address that? Well, there's a type of work that's called shadow work, right? And shadow work is when we dive deep into pieces of us that we haven't yet owned. And what that means is that for every positive trait we have, let's just say we're giving. Let's say we have the positive trait of being a giving person, right? But all of us have a piece of us inside of us that is a little bit stingy. We all do, right? That's just part of human nature. Or let's just say we're very generous and we're very kind. But all of us have a piece of us which is a little bit selfish, right? And when we deny that reality about ourselves, then it sits underneath the surface and just waits to roar its ugly head. And when somebody does something to you which ignites that feeling in you, or that message you explode, or it could be explode in anger, or you get really sad. It could be with withdrawal, but you have some sort of trigger that causes you to completely lose control emotionally. And part of one of the most successful ways that people can grow and mature and be able to function inside of a relationship is doing what's called shadow work, which is being able to humbly accept their flaws. And this is really a pair of glasses that we need to wear around everybody in our life. That everybody is human, everybody has flaws, everybody has limits, and we're all works in progress. And when we have the ability to look at ourselves and feel comfortable with the fact that we're not perfect and we have a long way to go to get there, then we can show compassion for other people too. Not just because we say, I'm not perfect and you're not perfect, but your imperfections and the way you show up imperfectly doesn't cause me to go into my tailspin of how I'm not perfect too. I hope that made sense. Your imperfections and the way you show up imperfectly, the way D-Mark shows up imperfectly when he comes home from a really hard day at work, and D-Mark, forgive me for using you as the example, I'll use Josh. The way Josh shows up imperfectly from having a really tough day, in the office, doesn't cause Anna to go into her story about her imperfections. So, and this is up to Anna. This isn't up to Josh. This is Anna's personal work on herself. This is my personal work on myself, right? And it involves learning how to forgive yourself for being human and how to accept yourself for all the faults that you have. I told this story the other day to one of my clients. It was really funny. I don't know if anybody saw the movie, The Fantastic Four. I think it was the second one. And the guy who plays Captain America today in the Captain America series, Chris Evans, he was a character in the first Marvel comic movies called The Fantastic Four. He was this guy that could catch on fire and fly around like this big fireball. That was his superpower. And he was also like this young womanizer, really hipster, cool guy, and he just loved the ladies. That was his, character that he played there. So in one of the scenes, he has this meeting with the army, and part of the team that came from the army was this gorgeous woman, all dressed up properly with prim and proper with army uniform and like this whole thing. She wasn't somebody you were going to fool around with or just mess with. But of course, this character, this fireball character, Chris Evans, was not deterred in the least. And at some point, he asked her out on a date. Totally inappropriate. It was part of the fun of the movie, but he just came up to her and just blurted out like, hey, you and me, babe, So she says to him in the movie, she says, I would never date a man like you. And he was astonished. He just met her. So he says, why wouldn't you date a man like me? She says, well, I know too much about you. So he says, okay, we just met. Why don't you tell me a few things about me that you know? So she said, well, I've read your personnel file. She said, you're conceited, you're irresponsible, you're a braggart, you are totally unreliable, you're a narcissist, and you're completely obnoxious and you can't be depended on. So he sat there for a minute and he says, you do know me really well. I see. And then he proceeded to ask her out anyway. Right? So this scene where this guy, gets totally insulted to his face from this woman, he had no negative reaction at all. He was completely accepted his shadow. He was totally comfortable with it. And instead of getting angry and saying, well, how dare you call me that? Or, if you insult me, I'm going to insult you. Or of course, it's only Hollywood and it only happens in the movies. But I thought it was a great example of owning your shadow. He was completely comfortable with being called out for all of his flaws without any hesitation at all. And that's how we have to be. We have to be that same way. We have to be the kind of person that when something enters our life where it triggers something inside of us that is negative right? In order for us to pop out of our responses, we have to be able to say, okay, it could be true. Maybe I did speak inappropriately to you, or maybe I did respond, in a way that is not helpful, or maybe I am sometimes impatient, or maybe, I have done things that were thoughtless, or maybe I could learn how to listen or care or communicate better, right? So when we're able to say those things about ourselves and accept that about ourselves, then we're able to really be there for our partner and to not get triggered by what's going on. And we're able to show up for them in brand new ways that are very empathic and connecting. Does that make sense to anybody? Does anybody want to ask any questions or just share a thought about what I just said?
I think like a big part of it too is like what I've been reading about this for it's like half a year now about validating someone's reality. It doesn't mean we have to agree with the reality of it or their feelings, but man or woman, the feelings are the reality in the moment. So, and I know it's particularly hard for us as guys to like we're the problem solvers. We see problem, must fix, must solve. So we kind of have like this reaction. This is my personal flaw of okay, oh, you're having this problem. How can I help you? Or maybe you should do this. Whereas opposed to we just need to sometimes just be there and listen
Yes,
and not look for any kind of support like that. And it's
absolutely.
hard to do that because it's counterintuitive to how males are bred.
100%. Yes, absolutely. That's very true. And it's hard to validate someone's reality when you yourself are triggered by that reality, right? Like, especially if it's about you. So if my reality is that you've shown up for me in a way that was less than what I expected or less than I wanted, and then you come along and tell me the reasons why, it's if it's hard for me to be there for you and hear what you're saying when I feel attacked. So the key is that if I'm able to handle your attack, what you call an attack, or your expression of your feelings, and I'm able to handle that, like Superman, right? I always like the examples of Superman with the bullets, right? Bullets hit Superman and they just bounced off, right? That's how we want to be. We want to be like Superman, where somebody can throw things at us and they just kind of, you can take it. It doesn't send us to a tizzy. But in order for us to be that type of person, to be able to validate someone's feelings and their reality, in spite of it being so counter to our own, we need to be able to handle whatever's coming our way, as uncomfortable as it is. Right. And that's how we open up our partner, because then we give the other person a chance to share what's going on inside their heart. Right. When I get upset right away, when you share your feelings, you know, I'm incapable of being there for you. Right. And that begins with me accepting the fact that there's a really good chance that if you have something negative to say about me, that there's a really good chance that that's true, and that that's okay. That that's okay. It's true. It's true. I screwed up. It's true. Or I'm less than perfect. That's okay. Add it to the list. Okay. So now that we've explained the concept, let's talk some brass tacks and get some examples on the table, right? So what would empathy look like if you could handle your partner's anger? And let's use the example again of Demark and Diamond, when Demark comes home from work and is really stressed, and Diamond was kind of a little ticked off because Demark isn't sharing the way she wants, or maybe Demark scowled at her, or maybe Demark showing up with some sort of attitude about something or another, right? So Diamond's upset. She doesn't like it. She wanted a husband that came home with some flowers in his hands and gives her a big hug and says, "Can I help you with the house? And let me cook you dinner," right? But that didn't happen tonight, right? So how could we show Demark more compassion? What would that look like? So he's upset about work. somebody throws something out, I was like, what would be a good response to DMARC? No takers? Okay. Go for it.
So you're asking how I would handle DMARC being angry where I would in his lady's shoes.
Yes, yeah, like
Okay, so having been there myself, where I'm angry, I would just probably be like, hey, you look like you're upset. Maybe something happened at work. If you need some space, maybe you need some space. I'm here if you need to let off some steam or rant or tell me about it.
Good.
And then I would probably just let them have room to relax.
Excellent. Yeah, that would come from a place where DMARC's anger isn't triggering anything in you, right? It's not getting you, Josh, like all frustrated and flustered, and you're like, hey, DMARC's just like me. He had a bad day. Maybe something's wrong, and something hurts him, just like things hurt me, and you want to give him some space. Good. Okay. Grace, did you want to chime in, or how are you feeling?
Hello.
Hi.
I'm just listening.
Okay.
I just finished work and I got late, so I didn't want to interrupt, but I thought I'd try to catch up where you are.
Okay.
So yeah, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. No problem. Cool. Well, welcome and thanks for coming. Let's see.
I had something.
Oh, good. Yes, let me hear.
It might be kind of slightly off tangent, but I think like in Diamond's case, or when someone's coming home late or things, a lot of it's because it's our expectations, which are kind of bred from assumptions and sort of the mind reading aspect, to where we think, oh, I can't wait for, we may not think about it too much, but there's that little thing in the back of our head says, oh, I can't wait to see so-and-so when they come home, kiss them and stuff. And when they don't do that, that's an expectation, an assumption that was broken. So I think what a lot of times it has to do with is being very precise and concise with your needs, expectations, and wants, and checking in on someone. Because there's times where I'll want to go in for a kiss or a hug with my girlfriend, and she's not in the mood. And initially when this first happens, I'm kind of like taken aback, like, whoa, what did I do? What's wrong? What did I do? And again, it goes back to what we were saying before, not taking it personal. Sometimes it can be, but sometimes it's not. And it's just about making sure trying our best to get rid of our assumptions and saying precisely what we want or what we're looking to have. And if someone rejects that's okay.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, and as you progress in your relationship, you'll experience that more and more. and part of the growing process for all of us, right, who are involved in relationships, is coming to terms with the distance between what I want and what my partner is willing to give. Right? There's a distance there. There'll always be a distance. Your partner will never satisfy you. They'll satisfy a lot, but they will never satisfy you. It's impossible, because we're two different bodies, and bodies have limits. So as a couple, we want total unification, right? Because as Kabbalah teaches us, Jewish Kabbalah teaches us, we're really one soul that's been split in half. So you have this magnet inside of you, like Josh has this magnet, right? Like an Iron Man magnet inside of his chest, right? And Annabelle has an Iron Man magnet inside of her chest, and it's pulling each other together, right? But there's the rest of the body that gets in the way. There's Annabelle's upbringing and her culture and her personality and her fears and her limitations and her dreams, right? And then there's that exact same thing on Josh's side. And those two things are different. So there's always going to be that distance. And part of maturing in a relationship is the acceptance of that distance and the learning to love each other in spite of that distance. So when we first get into a relationship, we think that it's like you're like as close as can be. It's like this lovely honeymoon that's just, I don't see anything wrong in my partner, right? But over time, what happens is that we start noticing life has its way, right? God gave us 120 years in this world, and eventually, it might not be the first year or the second year, something's going to happen where the difference between the husband and wife is going to rear its head. And that's going to be a challenge. And so I like what you said, Mark, in terms of your expectations. You know, we do need, part of growing up in relationships is to check those expectations and to learn how to deal with them. I have some articles on my website called how to handle disappointment in your relationship. And I've got a couple of them on there because it is such an important topic. You know, does that make sense to everybody? Yeah, good, good. Oh, hey, Grace. Yeah, so that's like a biggie. But back to what we were saying before, I liked Josh's example. That was good. Certainly checking your expectations is good. I'm going to read some of them from the article that I wrote about it, how to show your care, right? And some things you can say is, if you see that your partner is sad, you could say, I'm so sorry that you're sad. I want to be here for you. Let me hug you. Right? That would be a really great thing for a husband who came home from work and is all angry, for his wife just to look at him and say, wow, I can see that you're sad from something. I want to be here for you. Let me hug you. Right? Or for women, oftentimes they want something else. So if a woman had a bad experience, whatever it was, whether she was rejected by a friend, or she had a failure in business, or she had a really tough day with the kids, or she heard some bad news about her parents or something like that, a husband could say, I can sense your anxiety. I wish I could take it away. Share everything with me. Just tell me everything that happened. Right? And that's really what she needs. Right? She doesn't need oftentimes women, when they're anxious and nervous, they don't want to be hugged. That's not how that's not how they let go of their tension. For men, it's like exactly what we want most of the time. But for many women, they want to talk. They want to vent, and for a man, for him to be a vessel for that, for him to be able to hear everything, even if it's about him, which is like Superman level. Can you imagine? Your wife's pissed off at you. You did something that really pissed her off. You think you're perfectly fine. And you say to her, tell me everything. Share with me all your feelings. Let it all out. Let's go. Boom. That's a man. Right? That's a strong person. But you need a lot of personal work to do that. It's not going to happen just because you say it. Because if you don't do the personal work, she's going to say something to you, and you're going to feel like she chopped you down at the knees, and you're going to respond back viciously. That's not what she needs. Right? Okay. I feel that something is wrong. I love you deeply, and if you need anything from me right now, please let me know. I'm here. Right? These are ways that you can express yourself to your spouse that are empathic. I understand that when you are stressed, you don't want to talk about it. I respect that. But I want to support you. Can I give you a back rub, or can I make you something to eat? Right? So it's not always about physical touch. It could just be doing a kindness for somebody. So you can ask for physical touch. You can ask for, or you can offer physical touch. You can offer just talking if that's what your spouse needs to do. You can offer an act of kindness, food, that's always what gets many men love that. Here's one that's very powerful. There's nothing that you are feeling that can push me away. I love you, and I will be here for you when you need me. Right? really strong. Your spouse is angry at you and they're stonewalling, right? They don't want to talk about it. Can you imagine if you texted that to your spouse? Just said, listen, I don't care what it is. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for you. Whenever you're ready, you know. There's so many ways to respond to stonewalling, and many of which are very defensive. And that's fair. You know, stonewalling is a cheap shot, cheap trick. You know, so sometimes being defensive is appropriate. But assuming that your partner's not doing it to undermine your relationship, they're just doing it because they can't connect with you right now. They're so angry. Wouldn't that be beautiful to let them know that, you know, I don't care how long you stay in your bedroom for with the door closed, I'm going to be standing right outside waiting for you to come out. Right? Okay. How about this one? I can tell that you're upset. If it's something I did, I'm sorry for hurting you. I never want to hurt you. When you are ready, let me know what it is. And if I can, I'm happy to change for us. Right? Sometimes these are better, like if you want to go to my website and you can just, you know, cut and paste them, you know, just have them like, you know, like those little text messages that you can just like click and say, okay, send this one, send that one. Some of these are too, in my opinion, too vulnerable to be said face to face. I don't know about anybody else in the room, but when it comes to some of the stuff that I write, I can't say most of the stuff that I write. It's just too, for me, it's just too vulnerable. I would either mess it up or I would say it wrong, or, you know, knowing me, my wife's phone would ring halfway through the sentence and then I'd have to say it again or something like that. It's just, you know, it's easier just to text it and then kind of talk afterwards. That's what I found for me has been very helpful. You know, I'm not trying to avoid a face-to-face conversation, but on the other hand, I do want to get the message across in a way that she can hear, you know. Does anybody else feel that same way? Yes, sometimes, right? Okay. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So I know some of these scripts are really good, but if you're not used to hearing it, or if the other person is not used to saying it, does that come off not really genuine? I mean, I think you want to mean it, and you do, but you don't normally speak like that, you know?
Right.
So I'm just always wondering how, I mean, I think, for example, a lot of the gratitude experiences that we did was very good, but I always wondered whether that was not really me.
Uh-huh.
I don't normally naturally speak like that. Right?
Most people don't.
Right? Right?
Of course.
So I mean, as great as these texts are, I just wonder if they're a little too perfect.
That's
Could it be?
yes, 100%. 100%. And I've had mixed responses with regards to that. So some people like to take them and modify them. Some people just like to take them and take a look at the format and the way I structure it. You know, sometimes it just gets your mind thinking about how you can take an example in your life and use it.
Mm.
On the same hand, on the other hand, actually, I've had people, especially on Twitter, that, you know, I always put out these challenges. Try this instead, and text your wife and DM me and let me know what happens, right? And you'd be surprised at what shows up in my DMs. You know, they show me exactly, they literally cut and paste the text and they sent it to their partner, whether it's their wife or their girlfriend or their husband, whatever it is. And I always ask to see the response, you know, and a lot of
Or
times,
positive?
yeah, you know, so my general rule is that if it doesn't feel authentic and genuine for you, then it's not yours. But if it does, if it does, it's like, we get help in all areas of our life. I mean, you know, if you ever try golfing, right? You're going to hire somebody to help you swing the golf club. Does that mean that that's after the professional helps you and teaches you exactly what to do? Does that mean that's not a genuine swing? Does that mean that's not really you? I mean, I know the example isn't exactly the same,
Mm.
but if the words feel like what you feel, then the fact that they're coming from me, I wrote those words because I've heard what my clients are feeling. These aren't all things that I'm just made up out of nowhere,
Sure.
right? And a certain gratitude is going to resonate with you because that's how you're feeling.
Mm.
So it is weird. It's just, to be honest, it's weird, especially if you're not used to sharing gratitudes with your spouse. You know, it's weird. You know, and the gratitudes that I give to my wife aren't always so verbose or so meaningful or this or that. They're not always like that. They're just examples of what you can do.
Mm.
And then one more thing I'm going to say about that is that just like anything else in life, right? I've had couples that I've worked with that were having problems in their intimate relationship. So what did we do? We implemented like a 10-second hug. Right? It's a simple technique, the 10-second hug.
10 seconds.
10 seconds, yeah. And it's uncomfortable at first. Right? It can be like, okay, after 3 seconds, you're like ready to break away, right? What's with this 10 seconds? I mean, 10 seconds is a long time when you're hugging somebody, right? And then that kind of like breaks the ice a little bit of the coldness of whatever intimacy problems they were having. So we all need to, you know, grow, myself included, in our ability to connect with our partners. And sometimes things that people ask of you or that people need are going to be uncomfortable. It's like just the way it is. But don't do, if it's not authentic, then don't do it. Yes, Annabelle.
Sure.
I just like to chime in on what Grace had shared about whether, you know, if you don't normally talk like this, like lovey-dovey, you know, it can feel very awkward. And at least like for me in the beginning, I was like, wow, like, you know, it feels vulnerable. But at the same time, I asked myself, like, you know, do I really appreciate all these things that Josh does? You know, whether for me or for him? And the answer is always yes. So, and then I think that's when you know, that's what I think about. It's like, yes, this is really how I feel. Send.
Good. Excellent. Another way, that's it. Thank you, Annabelle. That was really great. Another way that I like to help clients break into comfortability is before you send the text, read it back and say, if your husband sent you this text, how would you feel? Right? Most of us would feel, wow, that's neat. You know, I don't know if people would say, you know, I don't know if I've never seen a response that's come back and said, wow, you sound really weird. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, I've never seen that. I did see one time one of a husband had sent one of the texts to his wife, and she said, oh, thank you so much. That was so sweet. And she goes, and you sound just like David, by the way. Which I thought was funny. It's okay. It's okay. You know, it was a real feeling for him. As everybody who's done the gratitudes with me know, I always start by asking you, you know, give me 5 things that your husband did that you can, and then I ask you, how does that make you feel? So it's really your noticing and your expression and then your feelings. I'm just really good at kind of like putting the words together and making it feel, you know, short, sweet, and connected. But they're really it's really what you noticed and what you feel about it. So, yeah. Okay. It's already 8:10. I just want to add a few more things. Part of the process of showing compassion and opening up our partner. So this is going to take another about 10 minutes. Whoever wants to leave, I respect your time. But it's part 2, which is becoming a great listener. So the first part is learning how to care, right? And the first part is getting over our own stories about ourselves, our own negative messages. And when we take down that wall that protects us, we are actually opening up our hearts to our partner and giving them the opportunity to show up in their weakness, right? That's a very important gift that we can give to our partner, to allow them to show up in their temper tantrums and their weakness and their anger and their whatever weakness that they have, right? That's part 1. But the second part is learning how to listen, right? So now that we've done that, like how do we listen? So I have an article on my website called 10 Tips to Improve Your Listening. And I'm just going to read off a few of these because I think they're really helpful. So before I do, does anybody have any suggestions on what makes a good listener? I mean, what's going on for you guys? Is there something that that you would want as when you're speaking that your partner? Grace, are you raising your hand, or you're just?
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Okay, no, cool. Mark, do you have any suggestions on how to be a good listener?
Did you say Mark or D-Mark?
I said Mark. Okay, Grace, you're next. Yeah.
I would say a good trait is to sort of, I can't think of the phrase, but it's basically repeat back what they're saying. Like, okay, yeah, I would be, they're telling you they had a hard day at work or whatever. Someone made them mad. I see that. I'm sorry that happened to you. I would be too. I can't imagine how that feels.
Good.
Or I've been there myself. I understand how that can be. And then it's sort of open-ended questioning and open-ended responses back.
Okay, good. I like that. All those are good points. Good. Grace, did you want to share something?
Yes. And I'm so bad with this. My girls tell me all the time. First, I need to make eye contact.
Good. Excellent.
As a mom, I'm constantly running around doing gazillions of things and then thinking that I'm listening, but really I'm not. And my girls really pick up on that.
Yes.
So I really need to drop everything, face them, and say, I'm listening, or I'm here for you.
Good.
And that gives them a sense that, yes, I am giving them 100% attention. And so even though there may be gazillion things going on in my mind, at least I stop all of that for me even.
Yeah.
And I get myself ready. I'm not just showing them that I'm willing to listen. I physically have to get ready myself to hear. So
Good.
that's what I do first.
Awesome. That's a great suggestion. Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
point. That's one of them on my list, which is to make eye contact. So good. Good for you.
I would also add, phone away in any situation.
Let's see, is that on my list? Yeah, put down your phone. Definitely. That's on my list too. Yeah, for sure. That's my first one. Give 100% your full attention. That's a good one. No phones, magazines, books, or side activities allowed. Good. Okay, D-Mark, did you want to share what you think makes a good listener?
I think letting the other person like complete their thoughts. Like if they got a thought that they got going on, even if it like they pause for a second, like, and just keep your mouth shut for a little bit longer. Going after. It's like sometimes I don't know, like my wife does that. Like she'll be saying something and I want to chime in, but I just shut up. And then she keeps going. So it's like that's one thing, like learning how to keep your mouth shut for a little bit longer.
Awesome. That's a really good one. I don't have that on my list, and I'm going to do that. That's probably because I'm not very good at it. That's why it's not on my list. So thank you. Annabelle or Josh, did you want to share something?
What I was going to say has been already been said.
Uh-huh.
No, do you have anything?
No, I mean, sometimes my mind will wander, but I'll just try to like pay attention to how she's breathing and just like get in sync with her breath. Like I'll pay attention to her and then I'll like try to breathe in that same rhythm, and that'll help dial me in. a little
Wow.
bit.
Ooh, that's very zen. That's cool.
Same with body language and stuff. Try to just mirror it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I heard there's
Get
an
in sync with it.
NLP or something like that. That's what they do with NLP. They kind of,
Yeah, and just nonverbal communication. It's like people automatically become in sync when they like each other, but you can do that and then sync yourself up with somebody.
cool.
I've found, if I'm out of sync.
Okay, awesome. Good. Well, I can't wait to see your Taiwanese cooking. That'll be really interesting when you're in sync with Annabelle and you're copying her. Okay. Yeah. So I have most of these you guys have hit on. So I have give 100% of your full attention, making eye contact. So Grace said that, and Mark said that. And I have actually really pay attention to both the words and the body language. That's good. Listen empathically. Use phrases such as, and I think Mark said this earlier, wow, that sounds tough, or it seems like you were in a bind, to empathize with the difficulty. Those small phrases are very important, right? Because Grace, especially for what you're saying, if your girls are questioning you whether or not you're really being present or not, when you respond with those two little phrases, wow, that sounds really tough, or it seems like you were in a bind, or wow, I can't believe you handled it so well, or how did you respond, or things like that, really lets your partner know that you're there, you're in the conversation, right? And Mark, this is something that you mentioned earlier. Don't ever make your partner justify their experience. Okay, so this is a big general principle I have in what I talk about marriage concepts in general, is that in marriage, there's no right or wrong. I know, I don't know, I've never heard anybody else say that, so I feel like I'm kind of going out on a limb, but there's no right or wrong. It's just everyone has their own experience. So when we go to work and you're supposed to, you're supposed to have installed, 3 computers today and you only did 2, so there's a right and wrong, right? But at home, right, if somebody doesn't show up the way that you want, it's not right or wrong, it's just their experience. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have something to say about their experience, because if it affects you, then you can share how it affected you. But we do that, as everybody knows who's been in the communication class, we do that with no judgment, right? That's very important. Marriage is a place where it's a no judgment zone, right? We leave right and wrong at the door, unless you want to fight. Saying right and wrong, saying, I can't believe you did that, or who does that, or that's totally wrong. People, that's just unacceptable. Like, those phrases are going to get you in hot water in marriage, right? So you can say, that thing that you did was very painful to me, or that thing that you did shocked me, or the thing that you did caused me, was very disturbing to, this or that, or you can say things like that gently, but we don't judge. We don't bring outside judgment to another person's reality. Okay. And as D. Mark said earlier, don't be thinking of what to say as soon as they're finished. Just let go of your need to give advice or fix the situation. Give them some more time to finish what they're trying to say before you jump in. Have patience. Is there anything else you want to share? Right? That's a good one. Right? Is there anything else you want to share? That's a good one. Somebody mentioned mirroring. Mark, you mentioned mirroring. Repeat something that meant something to you. So that's a really good one. So let's just say, especially for those of us who have children, like, children love that. If you're listening to this long story that's like totally boring and the kid's going on and on and on, one way that you can make yourself seem like you're completely engaged is just to flash memory one sentence that they said, or some event within the long story, and just repeat that. Oh, so your class had a 20-minute recess, or your teacher gave you extra recess time today. Wow, that sounds like it was so much fun, right? Meanwhile, she's told you her whole routine from 9 a.m. to 5, and you're, want to fall off a bridge. And you're able to repeat something that lets her know that you were engaged and that you were, at least for part of the time, listening. Okay. And then another one that's really important is called validating their reactions and understandings. I can really see that you feel upset, That makes 100% sense, right? I know sometimes if my wife says to me about something and she's upset about it, and I don't think that that makes sense that she got upset about it, I'll be like, well, I don't get why you're so angry. Or are you sure like that? I'll act like, oh, I'm confused as to why you're reacting this way. That is not good listening at all, right? That's not good listening. You want to say things like, I can really understand why you're upset. That makes 100% sense, right? Then that person is able to, because what is listening after all? It's not, all you're doing is, why do we need people to listen to us? Why can't I just say the exact same thing to a wall? What's the difference? I can talk to somebody and I can talk to a wall. As long as I'm talking, why does the fact that my words is going to somebody else's ear feel so good to me? Right? And the reason why is because you're not really looking for somebody to hear you, you're looking for somebody to understand you. And a wall can't hear you. A wall can't understand you. You can put it into a tape and play it back, so that can hear you, but a tape recorder can't understand you. So that's what we're looking for. We're all looking for understanding. So if you know that your partner's sharing something with you, being present enough to respond, in a way that shows that you get them. That's the point of this whole thing. You're paying attention and you're responding in a way that shows that you get them. That is so cathartic. There's an entire school of therapy that is built on nothing more. Carl Rogers invented this entire method of therapy. Forget Freud and psychoanalysis, forget all these other, Adler and his theories, and forget, narrative therapy. This one guy who's like the backbone of psychology, his entire premise is that when somebody, that the most powerful means, the most powerful catharsis that a person can experience is being heard and being understood. That was it. And he was one of the most well-known and influential therapists of the last 100 years, Carl Rogers. It was like the backbone of modern day psychoanalysis or psychotherapy. So obviously we're not all Carl Rogers. If you ever wanted to watch videos of him, he's a master. It's like unbelievable what he's able to do just by basically not saying anything, which just doesn't seem like it'd be that difficult, but it really is something special. But we can pretend that we are like him by just using some of these basic techniques. The reason why you're listening is so that your partner can feel understood, and that's a gift. And then the last, Josh, did you want to say something? You're just adjusting your phone.
I was just writing down Carl Rogers' name.
Okay, cool. Cool, yeah. The last one is if it's about you, right? So if the listening involves listening something about you, take a few deep breaths, right? It's never pleasant. Don't feel like you must respond. That's a big one. So if it's about you, don't feel like you must respond. There's nothing wrong with saying, I hear what you're saying, and let me think about it, and let's talk tomorrow, or let me, you don't say let's talk tomorrow, but sometimes they don't want a response or they don't need you to respond, right? I hear what you're saying. I can understand why you feel that way. I'm not really ready to respond. I want to think about what you said, and let's pick up the conversation a little bit later. You don't always have to respond like that, but if you don't feel like what you're going to say is going to be connecting or helpful, don't say it. Everyone knows my number one rule of marriage is no fighting. That's my number one rule. No fighting. Fighting is kryptonite. We stay away from fighting, right? We run the other way. And it doesn't mean we can't have meaningful conversations. It doesn't mean we can't lose our temper. It doesn't mean any of that stuff. But we don't want to be in these prolonged situations where we're fighting. We don't want to escalate things to the point where we're yelling at each other or stuff like that. That's just my approach. I'm sure there'll be therapists out there that are like, do whatever it takes to get all your feelings out and, da-da-da. I'm not like that. So.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
And it would really be like its own masterclass on its own. It's about being grounded. I think it was Josh that kind of said something about this of mirroring. It's about being grounded, especially when tempers are flaring, or you can tell like the other person's is starting the emotion is starting to escalate. To really just even do the most basic thing, slow down your breath in your presence, take deep, meaningful breaths, and be calm, be the grounded one, no matter what shoe is on the other foot for the person. Because if you can do that, then you're not going to fly off the handle either. Because it's easy when the emotion rises in a room that everyone will match that energy. But it's super hard to do the opposite.
Yeah, very good point. Very good. Yeah, I like that. When the emotion starts rising in the room, everybody matches that energy, and having the presence not to match that energy and to kind of change that energy in the room is huge. Go a long way. So cool. Anybody else want to? I mean, I've had 2+ hour master classes. We don't necessarily have to take this one to that length. But if anybody has any questions or comments, yes. Hey, Grace.
I find that depending on where I am in the state of mind, that I can do these things a little bit better than other times. So how do I get myself there all the time?
All the time.
so that these tasks become a little bit more doable. Like, and my pastor talks about filling the bucket. Your bucket has to be full to be able to tackle, to approach difficult things. And I know I've seen myself, to my surprise, times when I could really do a lot of these things, a little bit less with difficulty than other times.
Of course.
So, I mean, aside from your basic physiologic, sleep, food, all that, how do I feed myself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, so that I could tackle these sometimes difficult,
Sure, absolutely.
Because I feel like a part of it is where I am. And when I'm in a good place, then I feel like I can do this better, more effectively.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, all those things that you mentioned are very important. Let me ask you a different question. Let's take this away from relationships, and let's throw it out to a different arena altogether. So imagine a musician on stage, right?
Mhm.
The pressure is on, right? There's 1,000 to 10,000 people staring at them, right?
Mhm.
There's all the thoughts in their head that this is the night that's going to make their career, right? And the lights are blaring, and it's like it's put up or shut up time, right?
Mhm.
You can imagine that there's a lot of anxiety and tension going through that person's body and their mind, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, totally, right? So let me ask you, if that's the case, so name me 2 or 3 things that are going to help them perform better.
Sleep.
Okay, sleep, good.
I mean, besides the physical?
Well, no, the whole thing, just whatever comes to mind in
Okay.
terms of, you're trying to work with somebody who's going to give a concert and such a type, and you're trying to explain to them, hey, this is what it's going to be like for you during that time. And they're sitting there with other musicians that said, yes, this is exactly what it's like. It's really tension. What advice would you give that musician?
Well, so as a musician at its, they're performing the moment of their life, I would say you've been practicing a long time. treat this as a practice.
Good.
You know, keep calm.
Mhm.
You're ready. You've
Good.
been ready. This
Good.
is the moment for you to shine.
Mhm.
I would encourage them.
Good. You have lots of encouragement. And so that helps them get in the zone, right? So if they have positive encouragement and you show them confidence, right? So
Mhm.
that's a big part of the work that we do with ourselves as well. So one of the things that we had talked, or that I had mentioned privately to somebody, is that, you know, when we look at these interactions that we have, right, as when we vilify our partner, right, when we say that that partner's like this big bad man, or this person who's angry at me is like this horrible person, or we get that's going to pull us away from our ability to show up properly at when the pressure's on. So the first thing we want to say is we want to relax our body, right? We also want to stay away from fright and flight, right? We don't want to say this is the end of my relationship, right? So we have to give ourselves some messages. My partner still loves me. I'm still a good person. This goes back to the first half of our conversation that we had. You missed some of it, but you know, when we kind of get rid of some of the negative messages that are affecting us personally and cause us to respond in a way of anxiety, fear, you know, and anger and reactive mode, right? So that's the first thing. We need to focus on the fact that we're human. We make mistakes. This is just my partner getting upset. I'm going to be okay. They're going to be okay. There's nothing going on here that is really that tragic. No one's going anywhere. No one's getting hurt. No one's feelings have to get hurt. No one's hurting my feelings. They're just angry, or they're just upset. Okay. That's part of calming yourself down, right? But another part which you mentioned is, if I was a musician, if I was trying to coach a musician, let's say a famous guitarist or something like that, to play that solo, one of the most important aspects is practice, right? They have to practice what it is that they're going to be performing. If they don't have, you know, these ideas in their mind, they don't know what that melody is supposed to sound like. If they've never practiced it before, they're not going to succeed. None of this stuff comes natural. Marriage does not come naturally. It's just not. The feelings may be natural, but getting along is not natural. It's a miracle, right? So we need to, just like anything else in our lives, if we want to be good at it, we have to practice. So here I have this, I can send everybody the links to the articles, but some of these things need to be in your mind, ready to roll. You know, some of these phrases, as a good listener, or some of these phrases, these de-escalation techniques, you know, they have to be in your mind. Hey, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, you know. Or as we talked about in the setting boundaries class, Grace, I don't think you were there, but in the setting boundaries class, you know, we have to be able to learn how to set boundaries. I see this conversation is getting really heated. I don't want to fight with you. I'm going to pull back for half an hour until it's calm, right? If you don't feel comfortable saying those words, or like in your mind, you're just like, well, David said I was supposed to say something here and I don't know exactly what he said, it's not going to come out. You know, I used to, at some point in my relationship with my wife, when I was hitting my early 40s, as most young people or middle-aged people realize, 40 is like the age where women start getting a new perspective on reality. Men hit it a little bit later, 44, when they start realizing, hey, you know, something's not right here, you know. And you know, the youth of your relationship by the age 40 has become overripe, and you're ready for a new transition from 40 to 60. I haven't hit the next mark. When I get there, you know, I'll let you know. But it's like an overripe fruit, and you need to like change things up, you know, because that love and that passion that you had when you were in your 20s or early 30s, by the time you're 40, 42, and you've experienced life, has faded, and you need to reinvent yourself in your relationship. You'll see. Anyone who's not there yet will see, that's for sure. And I had to, when things were not going right in my relationship, I literally would go outside. I think some of you can see pictures of my backyard. And I would write on a piece of paper new phrases and new ways of responding to situations that kept on coming up. Areas that we would fight about that I wasn't prepared to deal with, or that I wanted to shift the way we were dealing with them. And I wrote down these phrases. This conversation's getting, uncomfortable for me, and I'm feeling, attacked. Whether she was attacking me or not, I would never say that. I just don't know. I felt attacked. I'm feeling attacked. She might not have been attacking me. And I don't want us to hurt each other. So I'm going to end this conversation now, and we'll talk about it later. And I would write that down, and I would become an expert in the way we interacted, to the point where I was able to nip things in the bud. Just what you got to do. So you need to practice. You need to be an expert in how you show up. And it's not easy work. Most of us don't want to do it, right? We're just busy with our careers. And then when we're not doing our careers, we want to watch TV or go to the movies or play sports or play guitar, or that's what we want to do, right? Who wants to do any of this crap, right?
But how do you practice if you don't practice with your spouse?
Well, what was that, Annabelle?
I'll share something a little bit, because David and I were talking about this last time, and his article, there's a list of things to say, and I actually would say it out loud multiple times.
Good. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, that's what you got to do. And then
Really?
you can practice with your spouse, right? But you know your dynamic with your spouse, right? You know where things go south, right? Maybe your spouse has a temper, or maybe your spouse goes passive aggressive on you, or maybe your spouse does stonewalling, or maybe your spouse just, whatever he does, he just shuts down, right? So instead of how old are you going to be before you respond to that in a way that's effective, right? When you're in your 20s and 30s and your spouse has this response, you kind of just take it on the chin and keep moving. But you hit a certain age in your life, you're just like, this isn't what I want for myself anymore. And so you practice, you say to yourself, okay, this is what I really want in that situation. Walking away from me in a conversation is not okay. I feel really disrespected when you walk away from me in a conversation. It's just so hurtful. I understand that you don't want to talk about it anymore, but if there's a way that you could at least say, I'll talk to you later, or I love you, I just need some time to myself, I'd really appreciate that. Right? But you have to practice that, because when it happens, you're not going to have anything to say. You're just going to say, how dare you? And you start chasing him down the hallway, and it's like a disaster. Right? So we need to become an expert in our relationships. This is your life we're talking about, right? This is what makes people happy and sad. My father once told me, when he was older, growing up, we didn't really have any money. My father had a dry cleaning business, which he inherited from his father, total disaster. But when my mother passed away, my father remarried, and he married a woman who was very, very wealthy. So I asked my dad, I said to him, after a couple of years, my dad didn't even know how to spend all this money, but this woman taught him pretty quickly how to buy a nice car and go to Neiman Marcus for the, $700 jackets. And it just looked like a totally different person. My dad was like Mr. Walmart and Kmart and all that stuff, and all of a sudden he's wearing a $700 jacket, Anyway, so I asked him, I said, how has the money changed your life? So he said to me, David, he goes, it's definitely changed my life. But I want you to know that it only makes a difference to me when I'm getting along with my wife, when my kids are healthy, when my kids are doing well, when I'm feeling good about myself as a person. He said, then money makes a difference for me. But if these things are not in place, if my kids are sad, and they're failing at life, or they feel like they're failing at life, if my wife is angry at me, or if I'm not getting along with her, then the money makes no difference. Right? And so I guess my point of sharing that story is just, you know, like I said, nobody likes doing this work. This isn't something that we want to do. Most people don't like doing this work, but it's work that makes a difference in our lives. It makes the difference in our life. So I don't know if I answered your question or just, you know, gave you
I
some.
would
Go ahead.
add on to that and say, like I had mentioned earlier, like there was a conflict this weekend, and it kind of went over the course of 2 days. And in those moments, I had practiced over the various months, learning more about conflict resolution, better listening, communication skills, et cetera, et cetera. And in the moment, you know, that's kind of, it can be trial by fire. And, you know, not every, we can practice in our head how, okay, if there's this conflict with my spouse or whoever, it's going to be this way. Well, it's usually not going to be that way because we don't know what the predicament's going to be. And I did, like in my case, I did well on some things that I had practiced and learned about. And then I did very poorly in some other things.
Okay.
Those were my blind spots. And those, now I can go forward, and we were able to repair afterwards, a day later, when kind of emotions had calmed down a little bit. And I can say now, okay, now next time I'm going to work on this. I'm going to be more present in this. And if this happens, I can try to do this. Because you're never going to get it perfect the first time. It just practice, practice, practice.
Yeah, that's great. That's, and you know what, Josh, now that you're mentioning it, I mean, this may be a more masculine approach to this whole thing, you know, so for the women in the room, I'm not trying to make you feel uncomfortable, but I really respect that story, you know, the memory that you just shared with us, or that experience that you just shared with us. And I do use it as encouragement. And maybe it's unfair for me to ask women to have that same kind of presence when their emotions may be much stronger at that moment than maybe a man's emotions. And that may be true. So I may have to revise certain things, but I still believe that having a repertoire of being able to communicate, having a method or a repertoire of phrases that you're comfortable saying, will make a difference. You know, does that sound reasonable? Good. I mean, women, you know, they also musicians, right? They have to practice too, and the more they practice, the better they get. You know, I know, Grace, you're a doctor. Obviously, you don't perform surgery today like you did 10 years ago or 15 years ago, right? I mean, you're an expert now. You know, and it's the same thing with this kind of stuff. So, you know, come up with your own. You can use my phrases. You can come up with your own, and you can ask me for help too. You know, you always call me and say, this is what happened. What should I say? Or this type of thing happens often. Or this is my typical response when these things happen. How best should I handle that? I think somebody asked me today, like they were saying, they asked me a question like, I'm trying to get my husband to do X, Y, and Z, or I want to share with him about something. How would I say that? So we sat down together and I wrote out this little text, this little, you know, and again, it wasn't just my words, it was really what she wanted to say. And hopefully that, you know, hopefully that did the trick, you know. Anyway. Well, I always enjoy chatting with everybody, and I appreciate everyone showing up. And if you have any more questions, just of course you can reach out to me. You can WhatsApp me. Just for the sake of the video, I'm going to say that I can be found at davidfeldman.com. Everybody knows that, or on Twitter at David Feldman. Family and marriage therapist, and I work with people who want to be married and want to stay married. That's my niche. Anyway, hope everyone had as good of a time as I did. And till next time, I see we're doing these about once a month. So God willing, we'll put another one sometime in August. And